You've definitely been to McDonald's at least once, but do you know its history? Our story starts a long time ago, in the late 1930s and early 1940s, in a small sunny city called San Bernardino, California. Two brothers, Richard and Maurice McDonald, whom everyone called Dick and Mac, wanted to achieve the American dream. They were simple, hard-working guys from a poor family in New England. When they were young, they moved to California because they dreamed of making movies in Hollywood. They worked hard, carrying heavy lights and building sets in movie studios, but they quickly realized that the movie business belonged to rich bosses, not to them. They wanted to be their own bosses. They wanted a business that would make them rich and independent. After trying a few different things, including opening a small theater that failed, they noticed that people who drove cars always needed a quick place to eat. In those days, drive-in restaurants were incredibly popular in America. The concept was simple. People would drive their big, beautiful retro cars into a massive parking lot. Beautiful young girls on roller skates, called car hops, would run directly to the car window. They took the order, ran back to the kitchen, and then brought the food out on a heavy metal tray that attached right to the car door. You did not even have to leave your vehicle to get a hot meal out at first. The McDonald brothers did what everyone else was doing. In 1940, they opened a classic drive-in spot. They created a huge, confusing menu with 25 different items. Most of the food was slow-cooked hot barbecue meat that took hours to prepare. For a few years, the business was doing well because the post-war economy was booming. Everyone had a car, and everyone had cash. The brothers made good money, bought a nice house with a pool, and felt happy. But as time went on, Dick and Mac started to notice some very annoying problems that were killing their profits and driving them crazy. First, because the restaurant was a popular hangout spot, crowds of loud teenagers gathered there every single evening. They used the parking lot to show off their cars, made too much noise, played loud music, and left trash everywhere. Regular families with small kids did not want to come because they felt unsafe around these wild teenagers. Second, the brothers used real, expensive porcelain plates, glass cups, and metal forks. The teenagers constantly broke the plates, smashed the glasses, or just stole them as souvenirs. The brothers were spending a fortune just replacing dishes. Third, because the menu was so big, cooking was a total mess. If a customer ordered a specific barbecue sandwich, they had to sit in their car for 20 or 30 minutes just waiting for the kitchen to prepare it. The brothers sat down in their office and looked closely at their financial books. They noticed something shocking that changed their perspective forever. 80% of all their money came from just three basic things: hamburgers, cheeseburgers, and French fries. All the other complex barbecue dishes, hot dogs, and tamales did not bring much profit, but they required a lot of work, expensive ingredients, and time. So, in 1948, Dick and Mac decided to do something completely crazy. They closed their highly successful restaurant. Everyone in the town thought they had lost their minds. Their friends asked them, "Why close a business that brings good money? Are you stupid?" But the brothers had a secret plan. They wanted to destroy the old way of doing fast food and build something that the world had never seen before. Act 2. The secret kitchen experiment restaurant stayed closed for several months, and the local people wondered what was happening inside. During this time, the brothers did not just rest or paint the walls. They were completely redesigning the entire concept of cooking food. They wanted to make a kitchen that worked as fast as a machine. To do this, Dick and Mac took their young kitchen workers to a large, empty tennis court. Using pieces of white chalk, the brothers drew the exact lines and shapes of their future kitchen right on the ground. They told the workers to stand on the drawn lines and pretend they were cooking. "Go, fry the meat. Wrap the burger, move," the brothers shouted. Dick and Mac watched the movements from above, looking for any waste of time. If a worker had to take 2 extra steps to get the ketchup, or if the person making fries bumped into the person making milkshakes, the brothers stopped everything. They erased the chalk lines and redrew the kitchen layout to make the distance shorter. They did this for days under the hot California sun until every single movement was perfect, smooth, and fast. This was the birth of what they called the speedy service system. When the restaurant finally reopened in late 1948, the people of San Bernardino did not recognize it. Everything they knew about a restaurant was gone. The beautiful girls on roller skates were fired. There was no one to serve you in your car. Instead, customers had to get out of their vehicles, walk up to the glass window of the building, and order the food themselves. The heavy porcelain plates and metal forks were also gone. The brothers replaced them completely with simple paper bags and paper cups. When you finished your meal, you did not give the plate back to a waiter. You just threw everything into a trash can. But the biggest shock for the town was the menu and the price. The massive menu was gone. Now, there were only 9 positions: burgers, cheeseburgers, 3 types of sweet sodas, milk, coffee, potato chips, and slices of pie. Soon, they replaced potato chips with fresh, crispy French fries. A regular, delicious hamburger cost only 15 cents. In any other restaurant in town, a burger cost 30 cents or more. Inside the kitchen, it looked like a clockwork factory. The brothers built special custom-made tools that no one else had. They had a special metal tool that put the exact same amount of ketchup and mustard on every bun with one quick click. They had a massive, super hot grill where one person did absolutely nothing but fry meat patties all day long. Another person put the pickles, another wrapped the burger in paper, and a third handed it to the customer. Every single person had one simple job, and they did it over and over again with incredible speed. Because of this assembly line, a customer did not wait 20 minutes anymore. They received a hot, fresh burger just 30 seconds after paying their 15 cents. Families absolutely loved it because it was cheap, fast, and clean. The trash problem disappeared, and the restaurant became an absolute goldmine. The brothers became rich local heroes, but they were modest men. They did not want to open more restaurants because they loved managing their one perfect spot. Act 3. Enter the milkshake salesman. Now, let us move our calendar to the year 1954 and travel across the country to Chicago, where we meet a man named Ray Kroc. Ray was 52 years old, an age when most people start thinking about retirement, not building a global empire. Ray was a classic American traveling salesman. He was a guy who had spent his whole life driving thousands of miles across America, staying in cheap hotels, and trying to sell things to shop owners. Over the years, he sold paper cups, he sold real estate, and now he was selling a strange, heavy machine called a multi-mixer. It was a big, loud machine that could mix 5 milkshakes at the exact same time. Ray was not very successful. He was tired, his bones ached, his marriage was unhappy, and he was running out of money. One day, Ray Kroc looked at his sales book and saw something that seemed completely impossible. A tiny restaurant in a distant town called San Bernardino, California, had ordered 8 of his multi-mixers at once. Ray thought it was a mechanical mistake or a joke. Why would a small roadside burger joint need to make 40 milkshakes at the exact same moment? If they were making 40 shakes at once, that meant they were serving thousands of people. Out of pure curiosity, and because he needed a big sales commission, Ray got into his car and drove all the way from Chicago to California. Long, dusty trip before modern highways existed. When he finally arrived at the address, Ray Kroc stood there with his mouth open. He could not believe his eyes. It was a beautiful, bright California day, and there was a massive, endless line of people, moms, dads, construction workers, and businessmen standing outside a small, super clean building. On the sides of the building stood 2 giant, glowing yellow arches. Ray stood in the line, bought a hamburger for 15 cents and a bag of fries, sat on a wooden bench, and took a bite. The burger was warm and perfect, but the speed of the kitchen was what blew his mind. Ray, having the sharp mind of a salesman, immediately saw the future. He did not see just one successful burger stand. He saw those golden arches standing in every single city, town, and highway across the United States. He went to Dick and Mac McDonald and told them they needed to expand immediately. He told them that this system belonged to the world, but the brothers shook their heads. They said they were tired of traveling, they hated stress, and they did not want to lose their quiet, comfortable lifestyle. They already had a beautiful house and enough money. Ray Kroc did not give up. He was a desperate man who saw his last chance in life. He offered them a deal. He would do all the hard work, travel across the country, find the land, and open the new places himself. The brothers did not have to risk anything. They just had to give him the legal rights to use their name, their logo, and their kitchen system. The brothers agreed, but because they were careful and suspicious, they made a very strict, harsh contract. Ray Kroc could not change a single thing in the menu, the recipes, or the kitchen design without a formal, written letter signed by both brothers. Ray agreed to everything without thinking, and in 1955, he opened his first official McDonald's franchise in Des Plaines, Illinois. Act 4, The Real Estate Secret, and the War for Cash. Ray Kroc worked like a man possessed by a demon. He was in his 50s, but he had more energy than 20-year-olds. He looked for people who wanted to buy a franchise. A franchise meant that a person would pay a fee to Ray to open their own McDonald's using the exact same name and system. But Ray was very particular about who he chose. He did not want rich Wall Street investors who just wanted to put money into a project and sit at home on a beach. He wanted regular, hungry, working-class people like ex-soldiers or hard-working couples who were ready to put on a paper hat, stand by the hot grill, and clean the floors themselves every single day. The business began to grow at an incredible speed. New McDonald's restaurants with bright golden arches started appearing in different states. To the public, Ray Kroc looked like a huge success. But behind the scenes, Ray had a massive, terrifying secret. He was completely broke and drowning in debt. The contract he had signed with the McDonald brothers in California was a total trap for him. Ray only got a tiny fraction of a percent from the franchise sales. Most of that tiny income went directly into paying for advertising, travel expenses, and office paperwork. He was helping his franchise owners become rich landlords and millionaires, while he himself had to take constant loans from the bank just to pay his small office staff. He even had to mortgage his own house, and his wife thought he was destroying their lives. To make things even worse, the McDonald brothers were making his life a living hell. Every time Ray wanted to improve something to save money, for example, if he wanted to use a new type of powdered milkshake mix because real milk was too expensive to store in refrigerators, the brothers said no. They did not care about Ray's financial stress or his tears. They just sat in their sunny California mansion, watched television, and collected their easy check every month. One day, when Ray Kroc was sitting in his small office, holding his head in his hands, feeling deeply depressed and close to complete bankruptcy, a man walked in. His name was Harry Sonneborn, and he was a brilliant financial genius. Harry had been watching Ray's business from the outside and saw its hidden potential. He looked at Ray's financial books and said a phrase that changed the history of modern business forever. He said, "Ray, you don't understand what your real business is. You think you are in the food business, trying to make money by selling 15-cent hamburgers to regular people. You are completely wrong. You are actually in the real estate business." Ray Kroc was confused. "Real estate? What do you mean? We sell burgers." But Harry Sonneborn smiled and explained a brilliant, secret plan. He told Ray to create a separate, parallel company called the Franchise Realty Corporation. This company would find empty pieces of land where future McDonald's restaurants would be perfect. Then, Ray's company would buy that land or take it on a long-term lease. After that, when a person wanted to buy a McDonald's franchise, Ray would not just sell them the burger rights. Ray would rent them the land and the building. If the franchise owner wanted to keep their business, they had to pay Ray a heavy monthly rent, which automatically increased as their burger sales went up. Furthermore, this gave Ray absolute power. If a franchise owner tried to argue with Ray, used the wrong ketchup, or did not clean the toilets properly, Ray did not have to sue them in court. He could simply cancel their land lease and kick them out of the building, taking their restaurant away in one day. This changed everything. Suddenly, Ray Kroc was no longer a poor salesman begging people to buy burger rights. He was becoming the most powerful corporate landowner in the United States. The money started pouring into his bank accounts by the millions. Act 5, The Handshake, and the Ultimate Revenge. Be the year 1961. Ray Kroc had immense power, a massive team, and millions of dollars in the bank. But he was completely furious and filled with hatred toward the McDonald brothers. He hated that they still officially owned the main brand name, and he hated that they could still tell him what to do based on that old 1954 contract. He wanted to be the sole, absolute king of the fast food empire he had built with his own sweat and blood. He wanted to remove their names from his corporate paperwork forever. So, He called the brothers and asked them for their ultimate price to walk away. Dick and Mac talked about it in California. They were getting older, they had no children to pass the business to, and they decided to ask for a number that seemed impossibly huge at the time. They asked for $2.7 million in cash. In 1961, $2.7 million was a planetary sum of money. It was enough to buy entire streets of mansions, private planes, and live like royalty for generations. They thought Ray would say no, but Ray was determined. Ray Kroc used his new real estate power and his connections with Wall Street investors to borrow the cash. He gathered the $2.7 million and invited the brothers to a final meeting to sign the papers. However, during the meeting, the brothers dropped a small bomb. They said they also wanted to keep a very small percentage, just 0.5% of all future global company profits, to secure their families forever as the business grew. Ray Kroc became cold. He told them that he could not put this 0.5% into the official, legal contract because the Wall Street investors and lawyers would see it, get angry, and cancel the whole deal. Instead, Ray Kroc looked deeply into the brothers' eyes, extended his right hand, and said that he gave them his sacred word of honor as a proud American businessman. He promised to pay them their 0.5% on a simple, silent handshake deal, without any papers. The brothers, being old-fashioned, honest guys from a small town, trusted him. They smiled, shook his hand, and signed the official papers, giving up the name McDonald's forever. That handshake was the biggest, most tragic mistake of their lives. The very moment the legal ink dried on the contract and Ray Kroc became the sole, absolute owner of the McDonald's Corporation, his face turned to stone. He chose to completely forget about his word of honor and his handshake promise. He never paid the brothers a single cent of those future global royalties. If Ray Kroc had kept his handshake promise, the family of the McDonald brothers would be receiving over $300 million every single year today. But Ray did not just want to steal their money. He wanted absolute, total revenge for the years they spent controlling him. The brothers had kept their very first, original restaurant in San Bernardino because they loved it. But because they had sold the legal rights to the name McDonald's to Ray, they had to take down their old sign and change the name of their own restaurant to the Big M. Ray Kroc was so filled with rage that they were still operating that he decided to destroy them. He bought the piece of land right across the street from the Big M and opened a brand new, official McDonald's restaurant with lower prices and massive corporate advertising. Within a couple of years, Ray Kroc completely bankrupted the brothers' original restaurant, driving them out of business. The original creators of the fast food revolution were left with nothing but their initial payout, while Ray took their name, their arches, and their history to the stars, pretending that he was the original founder. Act 6. Building the global monarch. You know that Ray Kroc was the absolute ruler of the company. He took the concept of standardization to a near religious level. He absolutely hated when a burger tasted great in New York but tasted different or bad in Chicago. He wanted absolute, total uniformity across the planet. To achieve this, in 1961, he opened a highly serious educational institution called Hamburger University in a basement of a restaurant in Illinois. It sounds like a joke or a cartoon, but it was a very serious, strict corporate academy. People who wanted to manage a McDonald's restaurant or buy a franchise had to go there to study the deep science of fast food. They spent weeks studying the exact chemical composition of a potato, the precise melting temperature of cheese, and the complex psychology of customer service. Every single detail was calculated by scientists. For example, they discovered that the fat content of a beef patty had to be exactly between 19 and 23%. If it was lower, the meat was too dry. If it was higher, it shrunk too much on the grill. The onions had to be chopped into pieces of a specific millimeter size. Ray Kroc was a terrifying boss. He would often arrive at a random restaurant at 5 o'clock in the morning, walk into the kitchen, and look into the trash cans. If he found usable food or clean paper cups thrown away by accident, he would scream at the manager until his face was red. He demanded absolute, perfect cleanliness, creating the famous corporate phrase, "If you have time to lean, you have time to clean." During this period of intense growth, McDonald's started to introduce marketing things that we all see around us today. In 1963, they decided they needed to attract young children, because if a child wants to eat somewhere, the whole family comes with them. They created a friendly, colorful mascot, a cheerful clown named Ronald McDonald. It was a massive marketing miracle. Soon, billions of children across America knew the clown better than historical figures. And they begged their parents to take them to McDonald's just to get a plastic toy or see the clown's face. In 1968, a clever franchise owner named Jim Delegati in Pittsburgh noticed an interesting problem. Big, heavy construction workers came to his restaurant for lunch, but they left hungry and unhappy because the standard 15-cent burger was too small for an adult man. So, Jim secretly started experimenting in his kitchen. He invented a massive, double-decker burger with 2 meat patties, 3 slices of bun, cheese, pickles, lettuce, and a special, sweet secret sauce. When Ray Kroc first heard about it, he was angry because it broke his rule of a simple menu. But when he saw the massive, explosive sales figures from Jim's restaurant, he immediately put the sandwich on the global menu. They named it the Big Mac, and it became the most famous, iconic sandwich in human history, eventually becoming a tool for economists to measure the value of money in different countries. Another brilliant invention happened in 1975 in Sierra Vista, Arizona. There was a military base nearby, and the soldiers desperately wanted to buy burgers during their short breaks. However, a strict military law forbade them from leaving their vehicles while wearing their military uniforms in public places. The local restaurant manager did not want to lose thousands of military customers. So he took a heavy hammer, broke a big hole in the concrete wall of his kitchen, and created the first drive-through window, which they called McDrive. It was an instant, global hit. Soon, more than half of all McDonald's sales across the world came from people who bought their food through a window without ever turning off their car engines. Act 7, The Modern Crisis and the Green Rebranding. Ray Kroc passed away in January 1984 as one of the richest multimillionaires in the world, leaving behind a massive, well-oiled global machine that was growing larger every day. By the end of the 20th century, McDonald's was no longer just a restaurant chain. It was the ultimate global symbol of American culture, capitalism, and globalization. When the first McDonald's opened in the center of Moscow in 1990, or in Beijing, tens of thousands of people stood in lines for hours under the snow just to taste a piece of American life. But as the world entered the new 21st century, the fast food giant hit a massive, dangerous wall of anger, protests, and cultural criticism. The world was changing fast, and people started to care much more about what they put into their bodies. In 2004, a famous independent documentary film called Super Size Me was released in theaters. In this movie, a healthy young man ate nothing but large McDonald's meals 3 times a day for 30 days. By the end of the month, his doctors were shocked. He gained over 20 pounds, his liver was failing, his cholesterol was dangerously high, and he felt deeply depressed. This movie sent a massive shockwave through the public. Suddenly, people started blaming the corporation for making children obese, causing heart attacks, and destroying the health of the nation. Activists attacked the brand for its environmental impact, pointing out the mountains of plastic and paper trash left in streets. Young people started hating the brand, calling its low-wage kitchen jobs McJobs, a slang term for a dead-end, embarrassing job with no future and no respect. The bright red and yellow colors that once made families happy now started to remind people of cheap and healthy, dangerous plastic food. The company began losing billions of dollars, and for the first time in history, its profits dropped to zero. Young generations simply stopped walking through the doors. The top leaders of the corporation understood a cold truth: if they did not change their entire identity immediately, the empire would slowly collapse and die. So, they launched the biggest, most expensive rebranding program in the history of global business. If you walk past a modern McDonald's restaurant today, you will notice that it looks completely different from the red and yellow plastic buildings of the 1990s. The bright, aggressive yellow and red walls are gone. Instead, the exteriors and interiors of the buildings are painted in deep, calm, earthy green, dark gray, and warm brown tones. They began using real natural wood, stone elements, and soft, warm modern lights. They wanted the restaurants to look like a premium, expensive, eco-friendly coffee shop where adults can sit with a laptop. They also completely overhauled the menu to adapt to healthy trends. They added fresh salads, real fruit slices, and organic milk options for children instead of just greasy fries. They created a highly successful separate line called McCafe, selling high-quality espresso, lattes, and fresh croissants to compete with expensive premium coffee chains like Starbucks. Finally, they fully embraced the digital revolution. They removed traditional cashiers and installed large, glowing touchscreen kiosks so you can customize your burger and pay with your card without speaking to a human being. They developed advanced mobile applications with loyalty points and integrated their kitchens with massive global delivery networks. Today, a hot Big Mac can leave a kitchen and arrive at a customer's house via delivery rider within minutes, keeping the old 1948 dream of speed alive in the digital age. Today, McDonald's operates more than 40,000 restaurants in over 100 countries across the globe. It employs millions of people and serves almost 70 million customers every single day, which is more than the entire population of many large countries. It has survived world economic crises, local wars, political boycotts, and massive cultural protests. When you look back at this long, wild journey, you realize it is a deeply fascinating, complex story about human nature, ambition, and betrayal. It shows how the simple, pure idea of two honest brothers who just wanted to make a fast, clean 15-cent hamburger on a tennis court was captured by a ruthless, hyper-ambitious salesman who used cold financial strategies to turn it into a multi-billion-dollar global monarchy. It is a story that proves the power of a perfect, disciplined system, the harsh reality of corporate contracts, and the ultimate necessity of changing with the times. It is the ultimate chronicle of how a tiny roadside burger joint became the most recognizable food empire in human history, changing the way humanity eats, works, and lives forever.